So thank you everyone for being here and staying for the deeper dive discussion. Oh, it's timed. I promise you I didn't do it. I
Oh,
thought
yeah,
full
I'm
time. I was
sorry
like,
about that.
no, it's okay. But I'm like, why am I clicking the button all the time? It was not me. Okay. So I am so happy you guys are here for the deep dive discussion. Mr. Bell is going to go through this data set. And
Yeah,
then if you have questions, please feel
yeah.
free to ask. And then we can, again, answer any questions or thoughts that might still be on your mind.
Yes, well, thank you, everyone. And this is about our disparity study for Hamilton County. And I'm going to put it in a perspective of what we've been talking about, STEM opportunities, as well as the anti-DEI efforts that are going on nationally. But to let you know, Hamilton County conducted, I started working with Hamilton County in 2021 on the disparity study and planning and implementation. And it's taken 2 full years to get it done. But and as I mentioned before, disparity studies are a national best practice because after the elimination of affirmative action by the Supreme Court, those kind of preference for protected classes like women and minorities were not allowed. And it was part of Ohio Revised Code, our Ohio law, that you couldn't do it in counties and municipalities throughout Ohio. So we had to do a disparity study in order to get that done. And that basically, a disparity study compares over a 5-year period the utilization of contractors, the demographics, and the race, the ethnicity, gender, and what the county did over a 5-year period with utilizing these vendors and contracts versus the availability of these same vendors, minority and women, in our relevant geographic market area, which is a 7-county area around Hamilton County, Ohio, where we're located. And we did find some information, and so go ahead and hit. I think you have to hit. Yeah, go ahead and hit that. Okay, that's good. Oh, let's go back one. Yeah. And what they did was, again, looked at participation, availability, and any potential disparities. We didn't go in there saying that there were disparities, although anecdotally we had a pretty good notion that it was. Plus, we looked at the numbers from past years, and they were very minuscule for minorities and women in participating in our contract opportunities. And we were spending anywhere from $40 to $50 million a year on purchasing of goods and services in Hamilton County. The disparity study also did an analysis of the market conditions, place conditions, quantitative and anecdotal information. We had focus groups with vendors and community stakeholders and staff, and we got anecdotal information about those activities over the past 5.5 years. And then from that, based on what we found, we developed policies and program recommendations. Go to the next one. Next. And so what we did was we came up with these business enhancement policies that the Board of County Commissioners approved in 20. We got to go back. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why it's doing this. Yeah. And these are just some of the recommendations: race and gender neutral programs, inclusion goals in 3 categories: construction, professional services, and goods and services, prompt pay. All bidders had to submit MBE, WB, and SBE utilization plans, and we had a non-compliance process with penalties and formal appeals process, and that was for the first time. Next. What we did was, since we did find statistically significant disparities with what we spent in the last 5 years, I'm sorry about this. So we came up with the utilization numbers of 16% MBE and 13% WBE as our goals for all of our future contracts that go out. And I asked the disparity study to do an additional study that what would happen based on the past 5.5 years. And projecting it into the future 5.5 years, if we were able to hit that 16% minority goal and 13% goal on each quarter, each year, what would happen? And they came back to me with a report that if we were able to do that, it would increase the dollar value of contracts awarded to MBEs and WBEs by $14 million a year, or nearly $70 million over 5 years. And when I talked about this at a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners, After that, I got calls from companies, women and minority companies and throughout Ohio, who said, Robert, if you guys do that, you will change the landscape for minority and women businesses in Hamilton County. And I said, that's what our goal is. Now, this would greatly improve their utilization of STEM positions as well, especially around construction, professional services, architecture and engineering, and all of the different the type of services that we purchase that are STEM connected, environmental services, goods and services, and homeland security and emergency management, all that kind of thing. So we see this as our call to action, and that's why I titled this our call to action, is to really help hit those numbers as we go forward. Next. And these are just some examples of STEM in construction: civil engineering, construction management, construction technology, information technology, construction physics, and construction science. And again, we're spending almost sometimes up to $60 million a year on purchase of goods and services. We want to make a huge dent, and we're committed to make a huge dent in the utilization of STEM positions and the promotion of STEM positions in our community. Next. Okay.
I think that was your last slide.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I want to share one other thing with you around STEM-related positions. We have a group called our Commission on Women's and Girls that have been very active in promoting STEM activities within Hamilton County. Well, the Board of County Commissioners approved a resolution earlier in 2023 that supports expanding information about college application process, financial aid, and focus on connecting women and girls and other low-income students to alternative STEM careers by partnering with local nonprofits, local high schools, and colleges. The resolution also recommended prioritizing funding to nonprofits directly supporting efforts to make youth aware of ways to access post-high school STEM opportunities. They also are working in 2024, they're going to be doing a career day with STEM interested students who will be talked to and we'll meet employees of Hamilton County who work in STEM activities. And I'll just give you an example of some of those activities and positions that are currently filled by women at Hamilton County. There's positions for application analysts in Job and Family Services, community development administrators and planning and development, system administrators, in the prosecutor's office, coroner investigators, deputy coroners, forensic analysis, histologists and with the coroner's office, environmental compliance specialist, solid waste management programs, environmental services, director of epidemiology and assessment, Board of Health, director of preventive health, Board of Health, disease investigation specialist, and public health nurse, on and on. There's bunches of opportunities, and we're looking to match. There's over 25 people that have signed up to be matched with students that want to talk about STEM careers at our event that's going to be first quarter of 2024. So that's kind of where we are. I think we're fully committed to the STEM activities, but we're also fully committed to really making sure that we are you there?
Yeah, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay. Let me put this back.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Okay, I'm having trouble bringing up my screen again.
Oh. Let me see. I'll stop sharing for you. Maybe that'll make it easier for you to.
Oh, here I am. Okay. I think here I am. Okay, I'm back. All right. And that's, I just wanted to give you an update on where we are. And again, I'm doing presentations throughout the community on our new goals and activities that we're doing with our mandatory goes from women and minorities, and it's going very well. But but putting in perspective of the backlash about the DEI activities, we've been had this in place since June, fully implemented with the requirements and all the bid requirements and everything like that. And I have had companies that are really pushing back on this. They think it's a burden. They don't see why it's so important to us, but it is because it's coming as a directive from the Board of County Commissioners, and we have established a compelling governmental interest that overrules the Ohio Revised Code restrictions that we have. So I just wanted to present that to you and to see if you have any questions about what we're doing or any other thing you'd like to know about our efforts in Hamilton County. Again, this is the first time we've ever done this. I've been in the position 5 years. We've made incremental progress, but we're looking to make substantial progress over the next 5.5 years, and we're totally committed to that. It makes it a federal program. So it's going to be real hard for them to just get rid of it.
Good. That's what we need.
Okay.
Some roots.
Yeah.
So a lot of you are still here, and you may have something that is on your mind. And so we open the floor for you all to share with us, what are you thinking about? What do you wish you knew more about? What questions do you have? This time is for you all for that deeper dive.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I have a question for you about the disparity study you alluded to earlier. How did that work with just businesses that were certified as NBE and SBE and WBE, or was it specifically just generated on minorities? I want to maybe more, I don't know how you collected the data, but I work primarily with minority businesses, and I'm really curious about how they affected your study.
Yeah, we took a look at, well, the first thing is, and it happens simultaneously, utilization and availability. Those are two separate studies that are done by the disparity study companies. But the utilization is they went through our records of every contract over $2,500, which were thousands of contracts, well, many hundreds of contracts. They went over that and they calculated, okay, who got those contracts by demographics, by ethnicity, the whole thing. And, they didn't have to be, we looked at every contract, not just minority women businesses, but every contract. But we laid it out so that we identified who the minority and women businesses were. And then that's where we start. Now, once we get the utilization data together, then we take a look at the availability data that they gathered during that same. It takes a year to do this thing. Because they're reviewing hundreds of reams, thousands of reams of paper and all that kind of stuff and electronic downloads. But at the same time, they're looking at the availability of minority and women businesses in our relevant market area, which is where 95%, 96% of our money is spent. And that came out to be the 4, 5, 6 counties around Hamilton County, including Hamilton County, where we spent 96% or more of our money. And they looked at the availability of the minority and women businesses. Now, because we're under some legal rules around this. One is governmental, compelling governmental interest. We had to establish that with really being able to say that there has been a statistically significant disparity. But we also have a legal rule called strict scrutiny and then narrowly tailored remedies. So we looked at the availability. But we couldn't go with just the demographics. What we had to do, they did a deeper dive with with these minority and women businesses. I mean, they did focus groups, they did census, they used census data, they did phone calls, they did emails to try to contact and get information from all of them that they identified within our region. And they identified them, but it was more than just availability, the demographic number. It was to be listed as available in that category, they had to be available, capable, and feeling capable and willing. Some organizations did not say they weren't interested in doing business with Hamilton County. You know, some of them were certified and some weren't. But we had to come on because we had to really be able to achieve strict scrutiny and to achieve that part of the legal requirements of a disparity study. So that lowered the numbers somewhat, but it still came up with a huge number. So that it showed that we were providing services to just a small number of those who are available, capable, and willing. Did that help?
Thank you. Other questions, thoughts? What's on your minds? Yeah. Where's the other mic? There we go.
It's really not a question as much as a comment. I'm Greg Park with African American Chamber, and I just want to give kudos to Robert. I mean, I've worked with him in this capacity of him going through the diversity study, and he has really been very impactful. And where the county is and the leadership with the county having such a broad scope of businesses under their umbrella, that the huge procurement spend that they have to take the initiative and really focus on making sure that minority businesses get a piece of that, and having to go through the work that it took to get to a place that we already knew we were at, right? Well, we already knew that there was disparity throughout the region. So they did all the work to find that, and now they're doing the work to make sure that these businesses can really participate in that. So I just really want to give a lot of kudos to Robert for the work he's doing in the community. And I think we'll all participate, but we all have to help in that initiative. We really got to get businesses to be capable of getting the jobs and the opportunities that are there. So I think it's work that we all got to try to help do. We're trying to do that work too at our chamber, and I know the regional chamber is trying to do that work too. So thanks a lot, Robert.
Right, and I just have to give kudos to our community partners, which include the regional chamber and the African American Chamber and Hispanic Chamber and them all. Well, we have a group of about 40 community partners that really have put support behind what we're doing and getting information to their businesses that they work with. They're, and as an advocate or a developer or whatever. So, community partners. Hamilton County is not doing this by itself. It's because we've got a whole great host of community partners, and I just can't say enough about them as well. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a thought. Oh, you have one too? You have the mic.
Thank you. Briston with the African American Chamber. My question is how can those of us in this room help push the agenda? In what way? Not everybody is in a position that has power, but we are here, which is a step in the right direction. So how can us in the room help in all of these efforts?
Well, I think again, it's usually using your political might, your community might to let the county commissioners know that we're going in the right direction. You support what we're doing. Thank them for. I mean, these had to be approved and accepted by the county commissioners, and so I work on behalf of them. And they're the ones that really help set the goals and pass the legislation that enabled us to change. And I'll give you another piece that I have to give kudos to, and that's GARE, Governmental Alliance on Race and Equity, which is a national organization that we're a part of. Hamilton County became a part of it 2 years ago, and it has been just a godsend to me to really be able to look at strategies and practices on true system change. And so one of the things we decided over 2 years ago that even though, we needed to have implicit bias training and support and all that kind of stuff, but we really spent some time looking at what the barriers and obstacles were to true involvement, and then really deep diving into those barriers and overcoming them. One of the barriers were just the way sometimes subcontractors were treated historically by bigger contractors on Hamilton County projects. So we've got a lot of new policies and procedures to ensure that these subcontractors, which tended to be a lot of the minority, small and women businesses, are treated fairly and equitably, paid on time, and all that kind of thing. And that is helping tremendously. Plus, we now have the goals for minority, women, and small businesses on the front page of all solicitations, and primes know right up front what the expectations are. And vendors are telling me they're being called in these groups to participate now when they never have been called before.
Of power, but we all are in a sphere of influence. So never think because you might not have a supervisor title at your place of employment that you're not a part of someone's sphere of influence. And that could be posting on social media, that might be those conversations at the dinner table or when you're out to eat. But the more you know, you need to share. And what I have learned, honestly, is that I have given a talk about the anti-DI legislation probably over the past couple of months. And every session, there was somebody that had no idea that it was happening. But then they were able to take that information and then tell somebody else. And then you're able to look it up, right? I'm not shy. Senate Bill 83, look it up. House Bill 151, look it up. Go explore, research, understand, and then share what's happening. I don't know how you feel about it, and that's not the important piece. But the important piece that it is, there's part of discourse, that it's a part of conversation, so people know that these things are happening. So again, don't minimize that sphere of influence that you have, and really share it on social media or share it with your friends and family, because the more people know, that gives us more power to say, hey, I'm not really for this, and you represent me in the State House. And so I need you to listen to me as my rep, right? That's the power that you have. And I think sometimes we minimize that. The other thing too is this is still part of sharing, but when you hear of opportunities, please take advantage of it. And if you are in need of, say you are a business owner in the room right now, but you don't have your certification as a minority business owner or a small business or a women-owned business, those are certifications that you need and classifications that you need, say something. Because there are always people in the room that can help you get those certifications, get to the next step. So then you qualify for the very thing that he just said is available to you. So don't sit and be like, man, I don't know, I don't have this, I don't know how to do it. Speak your goals into existence or say that out loud, because you never know who's listening and who can help and support you get to the next level. So those are real things that you should do that I think can help you. Yes.
I want to answer your first part about voting.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with the general election, it starts with the primary.
Yes.
So getting the right candidate in place first.
Yes.
That's right.
And it's not just national elections. The actual impact is local, and so many people fixate on the presidential election, which I get, right? Like I care too, but your local community is legislated by local leaders. That's judges, that's your city council. And Cincinnati's unique in that we have so many different councils and communities, but you really need to get involved wherever you live and understand what's going on, because it does actually have impact. No matter what people are saying, I know people feel helpless and hopeless and don't think it matters. It really does matter. It really does. Yes.
To that point, I've seen a lot in my generation and the generations behind us that there's this idea or feeling that it doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. The belief that it doesn't matter how I vote, they're going to do what they want to do anyway.
So I don't know if this is apathy. I don't know if it's helplessness. I don't know. I actually think it's learned helplessness that we're experiencing. And the only thing that I can tell you for me and the others, please chime in the room that if you have something else to add, is that we have to meet people where they are. And I will be quite honest, my students are all over TikTok. And so now I'm on TikTok. And I'm going to be the one that's going to tell you the truth. Because the more people know, the better that they do. But if we're not telling the truth where people are getting their information, we can't expect them to know. And no, it's not their fault. Like a lot of people, oh, these kids, they only care about TikTok. Well, that's our fault. We made the app and gave it to them. So if you don't want them to, like, you can't blame them for utilizing things that we literally give to them. So if they're going to use it, be there with them. Make a video about how voting actually works. Give real examples of the impact of when you don't vote. You see, they actually do respond to truth, and they do respond to example. I can give you where we're seeing an uprise of truth telling, and it does start from TikTok. Like even thinking about the Israeli-Palestine conflict, a lot of information on TikTok is where you're seeing students really feel like what's happening in the world. Be there with them. Don't think about it in a derogatory way. Use the tool like you did when the internet first came around. Use the tool like the newspapers when it first came around. It's no different. So meet people where they are. That's my contribution to that.
I just want to piggyback on that because you know you laugh at me. I don't know how to do TikTok too good, and I can't do Snapchat.
She is on TikTok. Don't
But
let
I
her
try-
tell
I
you.
try.
She
But-
is on TikTok.
But the thing is that we have to meet them where they are at. And what I do with my son is 50, right? And he got this little attitude about the voting too. And so what I do is I give him a real life example, because he owns his own business, a real life example of why the person who's in elected office in his town, where he lives at, why he didn't vote, the person is doing the antithesis of what's going to help his business. I said, and that's why you vote. So I think we have to meet people where they're at and give them real life examples so that they can really get it, because it is so huge and so amorphous and so complicated. You know, why do I have to vote for everybody, and why do I have to do the primary, and why, you know, they don't, if they haven't grown up in that, and I think that is some of it, I think it is learned apathy. If they haven't grown up in that, then they really don't understand. So we have to kind of meet people where they're at and then walk them through it. Even if that means you got to learn how to use TikTok and all
And it's
that kind of stuff.
frustrating. For me, I can't speak to everybody. I don't have it. You guys know those memes when they do the homework and the parent ends up yelling because they're doing a math problem and they're like just reading the problem louder and louder, but not really offering new strategy to solve the problem. I'm her, right? I'm like 5 apples and like I'm that person, right? So yeah, I get very frustrated trying to explain things over and over again. So I don't want you to feel bad if you're in that camp, but that doesn't mean you don't keep doing it, right? You have no idea who's watching your video or who's reading your post. Make them though. Tell truth, bring truth to power so people can, oh, that really does matter. Tell them the story. And I will say this, please stop equating everything to the civil rights movement. We have movements since then that are more relatable than 60. No, is it important parts of history? Absolutely. But things happened in 2020 that you can talk about, that they were alive for. Make it relatable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wanted to piggyback on the topic of voting. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, that's been noodling around in my head, because I like how you said that, is it's really important to look at your local school board elections. Because I'm in Butler County, and I'll tell you, there's weirdness going on. And this is, I think, something where people who don't have the right intentions in mind, the dumb donkeys, as Dr. Bankston tells me. This is, I think, part of their plan is actually to infiltrate the local school boards, which now will affect our children and what they learn. And so I think that's really important, something we can't forget.
We do keep forgetting about how our educational system is directly tied, and not the higher education system, our K through 12 educational system. That is actually where we see some of the most impact on how we end up where we are today. So talking about what curriculum looks like and how much time is spent on different instruction. I don't want to vilify people, right? I do actually think there are some people that have really good intentions that are serving in positions, but there are people that don't. It is intentional to take out certain elements of our curriculum because it favors capitalism to have a lower educational class.
Can I jump in really quickly to add to
Yeah. Oh, Daryl, you
that?
joined us. Come on.
Yes. Well, I've been around, but
Yeah.
you know how this is.
Yeah.
So not only not only worrying about who's elected to the school board, but I want to encourage everyone to go to school board meetings, whether or not you have children, right? So you are a member of the community and you have a voice to be able to provide to help to shape what the policy is. And you need to put pressure on folks so that they understand exactly what, they understand your perspective as a community member. And I will say that, again, Florida, where we're banning books, we have folks that will be the loudest voices for regressive, restrictive things within the school board meetings that have they have no children, they have no students within the schools, but they are there making their voice heard, and there has to be some counterbalance to that.
Thank you for that. Oh, yes, there's a thought in the room.
Further,
Give you the mic.
the children in the educational system are our future workforce.
Yes, yes. That is exactly where our workforce starts, in that K through 12 educational system. I know, Delano, you had a thought.
It was not necessarily related to this, but
Oh, okay.
the discussion earlier about the legislation and affirmative action and how a lot of it has been targeting the educational system and government, I think it's important to note that the same people that brought the lawsuit to the Supreme Court about affirmative action for schools, they also have a lawsuit against a Black woman private equity firm. So this is not a government, this is not a school district, this is somebody who raises their own funds and targets Black women who, based upon the data, I think receive 0.35% of venture capital funding. And the opposition is saying that it's unfair to have this fund for Black women.
Yes.
And so that's going to shape a lot of what happens, because this is a lawsuit against a private group that's doing programming to support minority groups.
I'm glad you brought this up because people always ask, what's the connection? I am the person running around, the sky is falling, I'm going to ring the alarm. And people are like, well, how does that relate to me? This sounds like it's very much so about higher ed. What you just said cannot go understated, because the people that brought the affirmative action bill to the Supreme Court also weren't even impacted by affirmative action at all. Just wanting you guys to understand that you can introduce a bill and they weren't even impacted. They just were upset about it, right? So again, they're going after a private equity firm because they are supporting Black women who want to open up businesses, who, if you don't know the data, don't even get 1% of funding. It's 0.5%?
0.35%.
Yeah, I said not 1%, not even 0.5% of funding from venture capitalists go to Black women.
And can we reflect on that for a second? I mean, 0.35%.
Yeah, 0.35% of money for venture capitalists go to Black women. 0.35. There's no number in front of the decimal, okay? There is a zero. And that is getting sued because people say that is unfair for a firm, a private equity company, to focus on how do we improve that number. I want us to think, and I did have a conversation with a gentleman from KeyBank, was here, talking about, I'm really in, I support this conversation, but I wanted to tell you that the optimism that I spoke about of why we're kind of like, oh, that would never happen, is rooted in the fact that the conversations are illogical. So it's not just optimism, but there's not really a lot of logic. Like, who's challenging 0.35%? Like, why would you spend energy on something? It doesn't even equal one, but that is where their energy is being spent. Now, you might be saying like, okay, this is just one lawsuit. No, what does it mean if they win? It is a precedent setting. So then anybody that does any focus on minority or women or small business, any ERG, I call them ERG, any affinity, right? would be then challenged, and you would not be allowed to have that focus, and people could then sue your company for having a focus to help somebody who is minoritized or marginalized in the community. It is scary that that's where we are. It's exactly, it's systemic. Yes, you were gonna say something.
I think, and Whitney and I had a conversation the other day about this. A lot of it is, like, one, there's a large population that is still mad about all of this. And some of this is the anti-Obama effect.
Oh yeah, we're still feeling the impact of the
But
fact that we had a black president. People are
We,
mad.
we imagined how the conversation
We're being
went.
punished.
We imagined how the conversation went after George Floyd, because we saw all the movement. And so somewhere in a room, and this goes back to there's a whole strategy. Because somewhere it started in a small room where they said, okay, George Floyd is happening. We need to do some things to do better. And somebody, probably a single voice, said, well, on the other hand, we could use this as an opportunity to push back against this, because we know we have a bunch of people who are silent, we can mobilize that group of people. And so a lot of it started, we have to think about where to start from. It started from a small room of people who said, on the other hand, we don't have to push for more diversity. We can use it as a way, we can mobilize people against this, and we can claim victim. And that's where you're seeing a lot of this anti-DEI movement coming from.
Thank you for those thoughts.
Yeah, I have too many thoughts in my head. I don't know how it's gonna come out.
Well,
like
it's
noodle
okay.
brain.
Safe space, let it out.
So I said earlier, I'm optimistic, only because I lived through 9/11. I'm obviously Muslim, and there's a $2 billion industry feeding Islamophobia. But where are we today? There was a whole community against a black president. It did happen. During Trump's presidency, the 2020 movement with George Floyd did happen. This is why I'm optimistic. I'm not being relaxed, but I do feel like there's hope. And yes, kind of going back, like I said, a million thoughts running through my head. Meeting people where they are, whether that's TikTok or the newspapers or whatnot, is where the change will come. The primaries is where the change will come. And that's where my optimism is. Going into the boards will make a huge difference. It's all the people with inferiority complex that are trying to silence our voices. But when social media has such a mass impact, that's created rallies that we've never seen in our lives before, be ready, be optimistic with them. Don't dismiss the optimism is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you for that. Because if anything, I need you guys to know there is hope. There is a large majority of the people that would be very upset if they knew. And I can't blame people for not knowing, because there's so much happening. It is really hard to focus, and I do push against this. We're in the middle of multiple wars at the same time right now that sometimes people just aren't okay. I have literally turned off my phone, put it in do not disturb, because I get so emotionally hijacked by everything that I'm seeing that I have to do that for my own self-preservation. I don't even know how, I don't have all the words to articulate how heavy watching the news can feel, and then that helplessness. But I am hopeful, because there are people that are learning, they're finding out, or they're getting clued in, and they're helping join the fight. I will tell you this, there are days where I'm tired, and that's why we need each other, because when I'm tired, you might be energized, and then I need to pass the baton to you. We're in it for the long haul, right? And so we just need to lean on each other with that hope, with that optimism, to know that the more we get people in the race, the better we are. We're going to be able to actually win it, but we have to work together.
And if I can add to what you just said, the optimism for me comes from knowing that Gen Z is the largest multicultural majority coming through. And so they're witnessing this now and seeing it as an example. And when we see this pushback on college campuses, that's against the notion of what their parents are already feeling and thinking. And so there's this pushback taking place in homes and families that will hopefully propel us to beyond. Exactly.
Yeah, you would have been proud of Ohio. So even if the legislation were to pass, I want you guys to know that they had a hearing that went until midnight, and I watched it from the time it started. It was the college students that were in the State House speaking out against how they were not for the passage of Senate Bill 83 or House Bill 151. It was the students. They were in droves there. You would be very proud. That's why I also have hope, because they're not passive. It just doesn't look the way it used to look. Their fight is not being in the street all the time. They are on TikTok getting each other together. And it's beautiful to see. So we're not, have heart. There are people that are fighting the fight.
I just keep taking the mic hog here. Can we all just pause for a moment and think of who we were prior to these atrocities and who we've become due to it? Think of the growth you've personally experienced from witnessing so much that it's overload, but it is bringing a change in you. Individually, you know, one of us changing will eventually lead to a collection of all of us changing. So appreciate your own growth.
Amen. The power of one is real too. Oh, everyone keeps telling me the time. You know I like to talk. Like I'm in the back, like I didn't see you. No, we don't have a lot of time, but I don't want to. You have something you wanted to say?
One more question.
We do have time for one more question, so we want to make sure that if you had a thought, a comment, that we open the floor and let you. Right here in the. Yep.
So going back to an earlier comment, Dr. Bankston, you stated, you talked about compliance versus commitment and then accountability. And I'm trying to see or think about or ask your input on how we can have that accountability in spaces like I'm in higher education. We're fortunate enough that because we are a private nonprofit, we are not immediately impacted by this change, but I see it coming, right? I see the potential for the impact on our campus. And how do, I'm not at the executive level, but how do I continue to push that and use my voice to ensure that we don't get there?
I think by doing doing what you're doing, and that is keeping yourself informed of the processes, and then utilizing the power that you do have in that environment to share that information so that it's always in the forefront. I think sometimes what happens in organizations, or what's happened in our society, is that we get complacent. We get complacent, we think everything is okay, and we're not paying attention, and before you know it, it's right in front of our face. So I think that it's our ability as individuals to kind of stay involved. That's why I was saying about, I know that makes us tired, you know, we get tired. We still have to take care of ourselves and take those radical breaks, but I think that it's really important to stay informed and then keep that information in the forefront of the minds of the people who have the decision-making authority. Because it's too easy to think everything is okay and then things fall by the wayside. And higher ed is tough. I only worked in higher ed for 8 years, and I think higher ed is harder than the corporate sector, which is where I came out of.
Well, thank you all for coming. That actually concludes our program today. But I do want to remind you that this series is quarterly. And so our next series is February 15th. It is focusing on our education ecosystem. You actually will hear from students at that session. So I highly encourage you to come and engage because the conversation is not over. And looking forward to seeing you all, and you guys, you know, bring someone with you because it's going to be a wonderful and engaging session. So again, thank you all for being here with us. And thank you to Mr. Bell and Daryl, Dr. Dickerson for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Bankston.
And Dr. Bankston. Thank you. Thank you.